Welcome back to this episode of Insider, where today we are going to break down all the NCAA tournament games. You know, March Madness coming up, starts tonight actually with the first 4 games. So first, we're going to take a look at some Cinderella teams that we think could make a run. So Joe, take it away.
You know, I feel like a lot of people are going with the Oral Roberts pick just because of the past and how Oral Roberts, they had that Sweet 16 run a couple years ago. I think Duke's playing the best ball that they could possibly be playing right now. And, with that, I think Duke pulls away and beats Oral Roberts. My pick is going to be Louisiana against Tennessee. I think Louisiana they have a high-octane offense, and I think they can take over against Tennessee. And Tennessee, their best player's out. And I think when it comes to that, Louisiana's going to take that and move on to the round of 32. That's my first upset pick.
All right. So those are some pretty good picks, I'm not going to lie. I really do like Pitt to upset a couple teams in the play-in tournament. I have them upsetting Iowa State in the first round and then going on into the second round to face Xavier and ultimately get that win over them and make it all the way to the Sweet 16 against Texas, where they'll fall. My other team I do like is FAU. They go against Memphis in the East region in the first round. I have them coming out of that game. And then I have them eventually falling to Purdue because Zach Edey will dominate that game against them, especially down low. So I have Purdue winning that one.
Also, I'm going to add one more thing. I think Penn State makes the Sweet 16 run. After watching them play in that Big Ten tournament, I feel like not a lot of teams are going to be able to guard that because, Pickett, their best player, he just isolates and they just run him. And when he gets double-teamed, he has great shooters that can hit shots. So, and I feel like if they win the first game, it's going to be hard to prepare for that in 1 or 2 days for the round of 32. So I think if Penn State wins the first game, they're going to win the round of 32.
So in the round of 32, they face Texas. You think they're coming out of?
I think when it comes down to Texas versus Penn State, Texas is only going to have 1 or 2 days to scout Penn State. And when you scout Penn State for only 1 or 2 days, that's hard. And I think Penn State is one of those weird teams who, if they're hot, dude, they can beat anyone. Funk hits some of the craziest threes you'll see, as he did against IU, where he shot the ball from 32 feet and it was nothing but net. So, they definitely have potential to beat whoever because they almost beat Purdue. They almost came back from 15 points in 5 minutes. So, they definitely have the firepower.
Yep, for my 2 Cinderella teams, the first one, I know this is going to be, an automatic pick for most people, but I'm going to go with Oral Roberts. I think the way they shoot the ball with Max Abmas at the point guard, and then they have the 7'5", Connor Vanover, who shoots it 35% from the three-point line. And, you don't see many 7'5" guys shooting like that, and he can also play in the paint. But I think the big key for them is Max Abmas, who had that amazing tournament run, a couple years ago, and I think they do it again. Now, the second team I'm going to have is Charleston. I think Charleston's going to make it to the Sweet 16 before falling to Alabama, but I think they will beat San Diego State and Virginia. I just think their defense is extremely talented, and I think they're going to be able to stop both those offenses. So with that, now we're going to head into each region, and we're going to break down a couple of the key games. So let's start in the South region. So, you got teams like Alabama, you got Virginia, Baylor, Arizona. Who do you guys like to come out of there, and what are some of your key games for that one?
For me, I think a key team to look at here is Creighton. I think Creighton is dude, when they're shooting it, they're shooting it. And I think if they're hot, dude, they can beat anyone in this region. Obviously, Bama is the 1 seed, and Bama, they have Brandon Miller, probably the best freshman in the nation, going to be a lottery pick. So, when it comes down to that, yes, Bama is the favorite. Obviously, they're the 1 seed. But when it comes down to Creighton, I think Creighton can come out of this region. I'm not saying they're going to win the region, but if I had to pick a team other than Bama, it would be Creighton at the 6th seed.
That's not a bad pick. But ultimately, I have Creighton out in the first round to NC State. I really like that backcourt of NC State. Terquavion Smith has showed a lot this season, and Jack Clark has done a lot for that program, being a transfer from Ole Miss. But I have Bama and Arizona meeting in the Elite Eight. And then I have Bama coming out of it because I just think Brandon Miller's the best player in the country. There's no doubt about it. And just their play all around this season, they've dominated a powerful SEC. And I just think that going through, they can take down West Virginia, and Arizona pretty easily to make it to the Final Four.
Also, I don't think Baylor is going to do much damage in this tournament. I got them losing round of 32. They're not very. I mean, they're not. They're obviously really good. They're a 3 seed, but I feel like they can't. They just don't have it this year.
Okay.
Same with Virginia. I don't think Virginia will do much. They could. I mean, they won't lose first round, but I think Charleston beats them.
Just because they lost Ben Vanderplas, they lost a huge piece down low. So I think with that gone, it's going to be very vulnerable against teams like Alabama.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of go, in a different direction. I really do like Baylor in this, region. I think Baylor's defense has always been fast, and they've always played up-tempo and got out in transition, and they haven't shied away from that this year. And I think, if you're playing fast, whoever plays fast in the tournament, they end up making a huge run. So I really do like Baylor. But another team I like is Arizona. I think they have a few, shooters like Tubelis, and then they also have some big pieces down low that helps them space the floor and whatnot. So I like both those teams. And obviously Alabama is going to do what Alabama does. I mean, they're just an excellent basketball team. Now, let's take it to the East region. We've got Purdue as the 1 seed. They won the Big Ten tournament. Great play there. Obviously, people picking Oral Roberts. Then you had Memphis, who just won their tournament. And as well as Michigan State, Marquette. Kentucky, a surprise team this year. They started off a little slow, but they picked it up. So who do you guys like out of this one?
This might be weird to some of y'all, but my most intriguing first-round matchup is Memphis versus Florida Atlantic. I think
a good matchup.
That's a crazy matchup.
Good
I mean, no one really knows much about Florida Atlantic, but those dudes can hoop. Those dudes can play. I wouldn't even be shocked if they gave Purdue a run for their money and took Purdue out. I mean, obviously you got Zach Edey, the 7'4" giant, who is almost impossible to guard. But if you limit him enough and you have the shooting like FAU does, FAU spreads the floor so well. And if they can outshoot Purdue, which Purdue's shooting has been pretty bad as of late, with Lawyer shooting really badly. They've been struggling from the three-point line. They've been just getting carried basically by Zach Edey. But I would not be shocked if Florida Atlantic surprised some people and even made a Sweet 16 run. I also love Duke. As I've already mentioned, I think Duke has been playing the best ball as of late, and they could also make it even an Elite Eight run. And lastly, I'm a big Marquette guy. As I watched in the Big East tournament, I think that Marquette-Michigan State round of 32 matchup could be a really great game. Ultimately, I would take Marquette winning that game, though. So coming out of this East region, I'm going to go with Marquette. I think Marquette's crazy good. They got Shaka Smart. Shaka Smart's a great defensive-minded coach. And also, as of late, the offense for Marquette has been playing absurdly well, blowing out Xavier in the championship game of the Big East. So I think Marquette's playing great ball, and I think they can take this East region.
So going off of that, I ultimately have Marquette going out in the Sweet 16 to Kansas State. I really like Kansas State this year, and Jerome Tang has done so much with that program, and I feel like he's built it up to one of the top programs into the nation, obviously. But out of the East bracket, I really like Duke.
Yeah.
The play from Kyle Filipowski and Jeremy Roach of recent, and especially the ACC tournament, has proven so much to the Blue Devils, and it's really shown so much that they are coming back into the season where they were middle of the pack in the ACC. And it just shows that Duke is ultimately one of the best teams of all time, and come to March, they're always going to be a tough team to face.
Yeah.
I'm personally extremely high on Memphis. I think after that win against Houston, they really took it to them. And after watching that game, I think this team is going to make a run just because the sole fact that they have the momentum. I like them against Tennessee because I think Tennessee, Manny Ziegler's injured and he's going to be out, I think, for the tournament. So I like them beating Purdue in the round of 32, and then I like them to beat Tennessee and go to the Elite Eight. Obviously, I think they're going to fall to Marquette, but I'm really high on this Memphis team, and I think they're going to surprise way more people than you think.
Yeah.
So I do like Kansas State as well. I think they're going to make a nice Sweet 16 run, but I also do have them losing to Marquette. But yeah, I'm extremely high on this Memphis squad in this East region, but I do have Marquette coming out of it.
Yeah.
But now we're going to go to the right side of the bracket on the top. We're going to go to the Midwest region. You know, you got Houston, Miami, IU. You know, people are interested to see what happens there. Then you got like Xavier and Texas on the bottom, and then Penn State, who is your team, your Cinderella. So what do you guys like? Like, what teams do you like in this Midwest region?
I think for me, I'm a big Texas guy. Dude, this year they've been playing really well. I got Texas coming out of this side of the bracket. I think Houston, I mean, yes, they're a 1 seed, but they have flaws. They have a lot of flaws, as we saw in the American tournament this past week, where Memphis took it to them. And when you show signs of vulnerability, especially at this time of the year, that's not very good. Houston, yes, 1 seed. I have Indiana beating them in the Sweet 16. I have an Indiana-Texas Elite 8. I think Indiana, you know, Trace Jackson Davis, he is probably one of the top 5 players in this tournament, as when you can take over a game in the inside. And Texas, you know, Texas is Texas. I think Texas takes out Trace and Hood-Schifino, and I got Texas taking the Midwest region.
So going off of that, I really do like Texas as well. The guard play from Marcus Carr has been amazing this year for them. And I ultimately like them coming out of the Midwest. But who I see them facing off against in the Elite 8 is going to be Auburn, because I feel Houston's loss with Marcus Sasser being injured is going to tear them down big. And I think with that, Auburn can steal a win against the Cougars and then face off against the Hoosiers in the Sweet 16, where they're going to win and make the Elite 8 to face Texas. But I do also like Pitt as a sleeper team, as they've played really competitive in the ACC behind Blake Henson. And I believe that they could make a solid run to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Houston's an extremely talented team. Marcus Sasser upgraded to a day-to-day. So I think if they make it past that first round, to be honest, I think he's going to be healthy.
Yeah.
And obviously, playing a 16 seed first round, you don't have to worry about much there. But I like Iowa to beat them in the round of 32. I think Iowa, with their, you know, shot-making ability and their perimeter offense, I think they're super high-powered with Chris Murray at the helm of that team, younger brother of Keegan Murray, who, you know, had an excellent season last year. But I also like Texas. You know, Texas is just extremely talented, and I just think it's going to be hard for many teams to stop them. Okay, so now to the West region, you got teams like Kansas, Illinois, VCU, St. Mary's, TCU, Gonzaga, you know, UCLA. So what do you guys like about the West region?
I think what's intriguing to me is, okay, so UCLA, remember that UCLA Gonzaga Final Four when, you know, Juzang tied the game up and then Suggs hit the, I don't even know, half quarter, maybe a little inside the half quarter. I see a little rematch here, Gonzaga UCLA, and I see UCLA taking this one. I think UCLA has the firepower. Jaime Jaquez, he's a stud, and they got some great shooters and great defenders. Mick Cronin's a great coach. I think they get it done, and they take this region. I think UCLA takes this region. I don't think Kansas repeats this year. I think they get stunned. Not stunned, but I think UCLA takes it to them. I think UCLA beats Kansas in the Elite 8 and takes this West region. And yeah, UConn also, I think UConn has a chance to win this region. They got some firepower. They've been on a roll as of late, and UConn could give UCLA a run for their money if they beat Kansas. But ultimately, I think UCLA has this West region.
So with this region, I personally think this is the toughest region out of any in the bracket, because with teams consisting of Kansas, Arkansas, UConn, Illinois, UCLA, Northwestern even, I think any of those teams can come out of this region and do some magic at least. But with you having that UCLA-Gonzaga rematch in the Elite Eight, I have the same thing as I like UCLA coming out of it this time. I think Gonzaga's lost a lot of pieces from previous years, and I think UCLA, even though they're missing Jalen Clark, still gets the job done against them. But I do have UConn upsetting UCLA in the Elite Eight, as I feel the Huskies, they started off the year 14-0. They had a good start to the year, and of recent they've been stagnant. But I think the tournament will start picking things up for the Huskies and get things done. But I also have Kansas getting upsetted in this round of 32 against Arkansas. The guard play from Arkansas is really solid this year. So
Arkansas is crazy good.
But they're inconsistent. That's the only issue.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you guys on, or at least you, Joe, on UCLA. I'm extremely high on them, and I think Gonzaga, Gonzaga beat them the last time, and I think it's going to be a revenge for UCLA. They only gave up 60.3 points per game this season, and they scored 73.9. Now, granted, Kansas also scored 74.9 points, but they gave up 67.9. So I think it's going to be extremely defensive battle.
Yeah.
But I think UCLA is going to come out on top in that region. But like you mentioned, Trey, there's extremely talented teams in here like UConn. St. Mary's has even, made some noise in past tournaments. You have Iona even, coached by Rick Pitino. They're going to be a little sleeper team if they get past UConn in that first round, which I don't think they will. But, they could make some noise if they get past that first round. So now, on to your Final Four. This is going to be the last segment for today. Who do you guys like to make the Final Four?
So in my South region, as I said, I was high on Creighton Bama. I got the Creighton Bama Elite Eight matchup, and I got Bama taking Creighton out. So I got Bama in the South region, and like I said, I got IU versus Texas in that Elite Eight, but I got Texas taking that. So I got Bama, Texas on my top side of my bracket, and I'm a big Marquette guy. I think Marquette takes it to the Final Four. So when it comes down to these four regions, I got Alabama, Marquette, and Texas versus UCLA. So for Bama, Marquette, that game would be crazy. The offenses would be, going nuts. I personally think Bama wins that game and goes to the national championship just because of the firepower and Brandon Miller, the freshman. I think he takes it to him and takes it to the national championship. And I like Texas UCLA. I think UCLA, they think about that Gonzaga game every day. Those guys who are on that team, that buzzer beater that kills them. And I think they use that as a little bit of a, let's go take this game. UCLA takes it. I got UCLA Bama national title in Houston, Texas. And ultimately, UCLA will take the national championship game against Alabama, 82-78, high-scoring game. It's going to be a great one. And I got UCLA national champions 2023 in Houston.
So with my Final Four, going to the South bracket, I really like Alabama coming out of that. I think Arizona just doesn't have enough star power to compete with Alabama yet. And I believe the Rolling Tide make it to the Final Four, as I feel they are going to face off against Duke, as that ACC tournament play has been stellar from them. And I believe Kyle Filipowski and Jeremy Roach can at least get the Blue Devils to the Final Four.
Wow.
And then on the other side of the bracket, I really like Texas, as they've really played really good without Chris Beard, especially with him being fired. You look at that, and they've really come together as a team. And then I have them facing off against UConn, as I see UCLA falling to the Huskies with Jalen Clark being injured. I think that's just too big of a loss for them. And I have Huskies facing off with Texas, as I see Bama taking down the Blue Devils to make their first ever national championship, and Texas to make the national championship again over the Huskies, where Alabama will win their first basketball national championship.
I like that pick.
Football school winning the Natty.
I like that pick, but I also like my Final Four is going to go UCLA, Texas, and then on the other side we're going to have Baylor versus Marquette. I think, both these teams are going to surprise people. And ultimately, I have Baylor and UCLA to the national championship, and then I have UCLA going to win it. I just think UCLA's defense is extremely talented, and they only give up 60 points per game. Granted, they're in the Pac-12, so it's not, nearly as tough as of a conference, but I still think UCLA is going to take this game, and they're going to win the national championship in Houston. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Insider. For my analysts, Joe Karwowski and Trestyn Mayberry, I'm Davis Gerig. We'll see you next week.